Good morning, everybody. We're so happy to see you all here. Clearly, everyone is as excited as I am to talk to you, Ynon. This is my first distinguished speaker conversation, so I'm doubly grateful to have somebody so loyal and generous to Anderson. We have a lot of questions for you, and I'll start off with a handful, some of which actually came from our students, and then we'll open up the floor for live questions.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to speak here. It's always a privilege to talk to students and be back at the school. For me, Anderson played a key role at the start of my career and very much set me up, gave me a bit of a start, introduced me to the business world, especially Hollywood and the entertainment industry. So great to be back here and talk to you. Yeah, the story of Mattel was very much, is very much still a transformation from a toy manufacturing company into an IP company. And the evolution of this journey started back in 2018. I was actually on the board, and I was asked to step in and initially be chairman and eventually CEO. I was the fourth CEO in 4 years. And at the time, the company had different challenges. And to me, the opportunity was to come in and redefine the company. At the core, Mattel is a creative company, and the brands that we own stand up against any other player in the industry in terms of children and family entertainment. So the opportunity I saw was to reposition the company and while we still make toys, to become an IP company. And so from a toy manufacturing company that was making items to become an IP company that is managing franchises. And that's been the journey. And what you saw here, just a couple of examples. Matchbox is a movie that we are now, we've actually finished production, about to release next year in partnership with Skydance. Skydance just bought Paramount. So obviously a great partner to have. And before that, we're launching Masters of the Universe movie with Amazon MGM, big global theatrical release. The announcement today is Magic 8 Ball anthology, live action, cinematic quality episodic series with M. Night as the creator and Brad Falchuk as the writer. Brad wrote Glee, American Horror Story, and so that will be another creative manifestation of our brands, not just on the big screen, but also in television for episodic, as an episodic series.
Great, this is really, really exciting. So let's learn a little bit more about the leader of all of these great projects. Let me start with the first question. Let's start at the beginning. Post-graduation from Anderson, I understand that you, like a number of our students, were really interested in pursuing entrepreneurial opportunities rather than a corporate job. You may not have gone that route, but clearly entrepreneurial mindset served you well throughout your career. Could you talk a little bit about how you've managed to maintain and nurture that mindset as a corporate leader?
Yeah, coming into UCLA, Anderson was, as I said, an important stepping stone for me. I grew up in Israel, born and raised. I studied business and management at Tel Aviv University. And when I came here, my English was so-so. And so, you have to quickly immerse yourself in the business community of a leading, top school in the world. But the opportunity was really to leverage the fact that I was here in Los Angeles and immerse myself in the entertainment industry as a student. You have a calling card to network, do different internships. And while I was at school, I did 5 different internships as a full-time student. Every 3 months I rotated. And I've done internships across all parts of the entertainment industry, from finance and accounting to distribution to being a creative editor for Scott Rudin at the time, and worked on movies like Addams Family and The Firm. So try to be really exposed to all aspects of business in the entertainment industry. So that was a great entry point for me. But I never looked for a job. I was trying to find a way to chart my own path, take all the great things that I learned at Anderson, but not follow the traditional path of sending resumes and being part of the interview cycle. And so I met many people, I networked a lot, tried to be exposed and be out there, but not looking for a job. And in fact, I thought I would probably start my own business, my own opportunity. And then as part of my networking at the time, I met with Chaim Saban, who was the creator of the Power Rangers. He happens to be Israeli as well, but there was no Israeli connection. In Israel, people say there are 2 degrees of separation. No connection. We spoke English. It was a full American meeting. And I wasn't looking for a job with him. And he wasn't looking to hire anyone. But we met, and after 15 minutes, he said, why don't you join me? I'll teach you everything about my business. I'll give you a desk, a phone, and a secretary, and we're going to do great things together. That was the job description. And I really liked his energy, true entrepreneur. Early days in his success, he wasn't as successful as he is today, but I joined him, and while I was there, I was doing business development, and we had a relationship with News Corp. Rupert Murdoch wanted to buy his company. He said, I'm not selling, but why don't we create a joint venture and take the success we had in America and export that to the world. And I was looking for someone to do that. We couldn't find the right person. And while we go down the list of candidates, didn't really find the right leader to go and launch an international business for the joint venture. And Chaim said, why don't you do it? I said, you know what? I will. When will you start? I just did. Where from? London, to start a European business. And I ended up moving to London, and we launched a business from scratch at the time. It was called Fox Kids. It was children channels in digital television. And we competed head-on against Disney, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon, and ended up becoming the fastest growing channel in paid television in Europe, not just in kids, but across the whole industry. And we took that company public 3 years later, and eventually sold the whole group to Disney. And that was, in a way, my first job, thrown into the deep end. When I moved to London, there was nothing. I actually rented an office on the way to the airport in LA. I called Regis, the temporary office rental company. This is before the WeWork days, and asked, do you have any offices in London? Yeah, we have 4 locations. They gave me the location. One of them was Trafalgar Square. I asked, is that where you feed the pigeons? He said, yes. He said, good. We'll take 2 rooms. And this is how we started that company, and ended up signing 500 distribution agreements in 3 years. We're on channels in over 50 countries in 17 languages. And that was a good start of that journey, but really specializing in international entertainment and leveraging new technologies at the time that redefined that industry.
Next question. When you joined Mattel in 2018, the company was facing significant challenges. You have been widely lauded for leading the iconic company's turnaround, spearheading multi-year transformation strategy. What were some of the toughest hurdles you faced throughout the transformation, and how did you overcome them?
Mattel is a great, iconic company and had decades of success. And what happened in around 2013, 2014 is the company started to have a series of challenges that peaked in 2017, which is the year I joined the board. And so what we needed to do was to transform the operation and do many things that you would do when you look to turn around a company. But the most important thing was to work on culture and redefine the journey. Mattel employs tens of thousands of people, and so to turn a company that size around, you have to focus on the people. It's not just the day-to-day operations, but about the people. And most of my work in the beginning was about defining our mission and our purpose as a clear North Star, with the mission to create innovative product and experiences that inspire fans, entertain audiences, and develop children through play, and a clear brand promise of trust, leadership values, product attributes, and be very, very clear about what is that we're trying to achieve. Back in the day, the company had a strategy, and I was saying to Bill's class earlier, that was 3-inch thick, that was developed by a consulting firm. So it was there, but wasn't relatable, and people didn't really know how to implement the strategy. So we had to define a very clear narrative, a very clear direction, and we did it on one page that everybody can understand, everybody can relate to. And then we cascaded that strategy across the organization. So culture, I would say, was the most important thing we worked on. But of course, then you have to translate the strategy into action. And we ended up taking some serious operational steps to restore profitability, fix our balance sheet, and put the company back on growth curve. And that took a lot of work, but it was ultimately about the people and about the culture.
Great. You've often talked about the people who buy Mattel's products not as consumers, but as fans. Can you share how that shift in mindset impacts how the business operates and communicates?
Yes, this is probably the most important mind shift that we drove, which is to realize that people who buy our product are not just consumers. They are fans that have an emotional relationship with our brands and what we do. And when you realize that fans in the aggregate is an audience, and that you're actually speaking to an audience, it's a very different conversation. We're not trying to convince people to buy items off a shelf. We are speaking to fans that have an emotional relationship with what we do. And if we can amplify that and create multiple touch points where people can engage and connect with our brands at an emotional level, good things will happen. And so this was very much about the journey. How do we create that emotional connection? How do we amplify that? And when we speak about marketing, this is not about convincing people to buy the item. This is about demand creation. This is about creating pent-up expectations and relationship with what we do. The interesting things about toys as a form factor is that it's tactile. People hold what we do. They hug what we do. It's meaningful. It's aspirational and inspirational. And part of the job is to take that tactile form factor and turn it into all forms of relationships, such as film, television, parks, music, musicals, and all these other opportunities that amplify that relationship. In many ways, toys to Mattel is what parks is to Disney. Disney owned a set of animated characters and built a very successful parks business. And then Disney, back in the 90s, bought Cap Cities, ABC, ESPN, Pixar, Marvel, Lucas, Fox. And parks is still their biggest business. By revenue, by profit, by people, by capex. But parks is where Disney creates that relationship, obviously generates significant profit and cash, and then build all these other businesses and create a flywheel where they capture value from their intellectual properties at probably the best, at the highest level relative to any other company in the industry. And we're very much on that journey Toys is where we create that relationship, where we build this emotional connection with our fans, and then we take that success and we expand it in other verticals. But it's all about the relationship with the fans. No one thinks of Barbie as a toy. Barbie is a pop culture icon. No one goes to the store and says, I would like to buy die-cast wheels or die-cast cars. I would like to buy Hot Wheels. No one says, I'd like to buy an 18-inch doll, like American Girl. So this is about building brands that resonate in culture. And to do that, we developed a playbook that is very specific, that everybody at the company follows. It's about creating a very, very clear brand purpose. Every brand at Mattel has a North Star. With Barbie, it's about empowering women. Hot Wheels is about the challenger spirit in every child, and so forth. So every brand has a clear purpose. We then infuse cultural relevance into our brands. And this is about taking brands that are timeless and making them timely. Today's consumers don't care that Barbie has been around for 65 years or that Hot Wheels have been around for over 55 years. To us, it matters because we know there's heritage, there's quality. We know these brands stood the test of time. But to today's consumers, it's only relevant to them to the extent it's current, that the brands speak to them today. So we have to infuse that and make that connection, that currency, that relevancy. And that is a clear part of our journey. And this is how you continue to create that fandom, that excitement, that emotional connection. And because this has been a very important part of our transformation, back to your question about thinking of people who buy and engage with what we do as fans, not just as consumers.
In terms of innovation and creativity, how are evolving technologies, particularly AI, impacting Mattel, and how are you embracing them in your operations?
Yeah, at the core, Mattel is a creative company. It's a creative company that is driven by innovation. And what we need to do, and what I'm very focused on, is continue to drive that innovation in different ways. Creativity and innovation come in different forms. This is not just about making the great next movie. There's one form of creativity, but creativity and innovation happens everywhere, at every part of the company. And this is something that we are looking to continue to nurture and amplify. And in today's world, technology plays a key part of that. Technology is a tool, is a means to an end, is a way where you can scale, optimize, amplify, and continue to drive more great results. So we're now looking to embed AI in everything that we do. We recently announced a relationship with OpenAI. And in fact, Sam Altman they had last week a big developer day, and he introduced Mattel on stage at his closing statement. And so this is a great opportunity for us, where we're looking to infuse AI in how we work. And this is, you can think of it as, in everything that we do operationally. How do you bring AI into demand forecasting? How do you bring AI into working on presentations, in defining marketing briefs? There are many opportunities where you can integrate AI in how we do things. But importantly, we also see opportunities to infuse AI in product and experiences that amplify an existing play pattern or create more ways to engage and excite our fans. So this is not about a speaking Barbie necessarily. It's the first thing people gravitate to think about, but it's more about how do you bring the technology to take an existing play pattern and expand and enhance and make it more meaningful. And at the same time, of course, be mindful of important issues such as privacy and be very sensitive to the fact that we cater for young children and families, and you need to make sure that the technology actually creates a better experience and not something that would become an issue.
Right. And you frequently talk about the importance of both art and science, creativity and analytics in business. Can you elaborate a bit on how you cultivate a culture that values and balances both?
Yes, Mattel at the core, as I said, is an innovative company driven by innovation, but we're also a highly operational company. And part of the transformation was to do more with less resources. During our transformation, we reduced the number of people that work at the company by a large proportion. The corporate side of the company, not the non-manufacturing part of the company. At the time, we employed 13,500 people, and we brought that number down to 8,500, so 5,000 job reduction. And within the 8,500 jobs that we kept, we changed about 4,000 people. So a very large turn in the people that work at Mattel, adapting to the new economy. We exited 6 factories that we used to own that were not productive. We cut the number of items that we used to make by almost 40%. These items were actually not profitable. And we didn't focus on that. And once we did, of course, it became very obvious what we need to do. So there was a lot of things that we had to change during the transformation and during the restructuring. But at the same time, it's about innovation, creating new product, new ideas, new opportunities. And just 2 recent examples I can share with you that we announced that tell a good story in terms of the breadth and innovation within the product that we create. One is within Hot Wheels. One of the classic play patterns is the Hot Wheels tracks, the orange tracks, which have not changed in 40 years, in decades. It's been the same tracks. Turns out they're actually a little bit hard to connect if you play with that. It's a little bit hard to connect, especially for young kids. So we recently introduced a whole new system that with tracks that you can connect with a simple, just literally with a snap. The material itself is different so that the cars drive faster on the tracks. And this is a whole new innovation of a play pattern that has been around for decades that no one touched, that we now innovated and see it as an important driver for more growth for something so classic. So we innovated within a classic form of play. And then, as another example, is that we recently got into building sets, or vehicles building sets, which is one of Lego's fastest growing categories. Meanwhile, Mattel is the largest player in the vehicles category. We know car culture better than anybody. Hot Wheels is the #1 toy selling item in the industry. So we introduced our own version of building sets for cars. It's something that we built from scratch and gave it a new brand, defined a new product, new go-to-market plan. We're not afraid to innovate in the existing and tried and tested form factors. And like that, there are many examples how you continue to drive innovation and make sure that you stay at the forefront of creativity and trying to reimagine and redefine what is that you're trying to achieve.
Great. How is Mattel navigating the challenges posed by current federal regulations and tariffs, particularly those affecting global supply chains and manufacturing costs, while still maintaining affordability for consumers and profitability for shareholders?
Yes, this is a very hot topic, very current, obviously. Now, this is a journey that we've been on since the beginning of the transformation. When I joined the company, I learned that 80 to 85% of our product is made in China. This is industry average, by the way, so we weren't different. but it stood out as something that we need to change, we need to rebalance, we need to create a manufacturing footprint that is more diversified and not overly concentrated in any one market. This wasn't about China per se, but was more about creating flexibility and optimize our footprint. So we've been scaling our manufacturing in other countries. China today represents between 35 to 40% of our global manufacturing footprint, and it will continue to come down as part of our long-range plan. So we came into the current tariff situation well ahead of the industry, that is still at around 80 to 85% average product made in China. And so this was not about tariff or geopolitics, it was about flexibility and diversity in the system. And the goal was to create a flexible, agile, adaptive platform. And as a company as a whole, one of the things I was very focused on is how do we create a company that is very embedded in manufacturing, but add much more flexibility and agility to the system so that we can respond and react and even take advantage of changing landscapes. And this is one of the most important things that I believe every company should do, is to be able to respond in a world that is changing rapidly. It used to be COVID, then now it's tariff. Tomorrow there will be something else. We know that the world will continue to change and evolve, and new things will happen. You cannot foresee everything, but the one thing you can do, and you need to do, is to build an organization that can react, that can quickly adapt and respond, and be agile to stay competitive. And that is something that we've been able to achieve. And every situation like that, we come out on the other side stronger, with more market share, more profit, and a better business, because we're better positioned to respond to those situations.
Great. Earlier you talked about people in your organization. During your tenure, Mattel has been lauded for its achievements in workplace culture and employee well-being by Forbes, Time, and Fast Company, and ranks among the healthiest 100 workplaces in America, among other recognitions. What are some of the key principles or practices you have focused on as a leader to build strong and collaborative cultures?
Yeah, Mattel is a very special company in many ways, but one of the important ways is that what we do impacts people. You know, we are part of shaping future generations. We don't do it alone, but we are a very important partner to parents, families, and of course, impact the life of children. So we need to always keep that in mind and remember that what we do truly matters. You know, what we do is also, you know, often newsworthy. You launch a new Barbie doll, and it's on the news, Good Morning America or CNN or Time Magazine. When we launched the LeBron James Cambassador, it had 15 billion references in the world. So, you know, what we do is out, and of course we need to be very mindful of that and do the right thing. As a company, we look to contribute to a better world, and turns out that it's also good for business. You know, on many levels. In today's world, people care about what companies represent, what values they speak for. Children, by the way, are the most sophisticated consumers out there. They can smell anything that is not authentic a mile away. And so we need to be very clear about our values and be true to our values. And this manifests itself in everything we do, in product, in marketing, in communication, and most importantly, internally. This is not something we do just to sound right or pay lip service or to, you know, create demand. This is about the ethos of the company, to do the right thing and contribute to a better world. And it's, as I said, especially important given what we do, and we take that responsibility very seriously.
Thank you. All right, you've said in the past that you think the role of the CEO has definitely expanded into corporate citizenship, where a responsible company has to have a purpose that goes beyond its business objectives. Can you share more about that belief and how it impacts your leadership?
Yes, as I said, this is something that is part of what we do every day, contributing to a better world, doing the right thing, and always thinking of the children and families who engage with our brands. It doesn't mean we're rigid. To be successful, you have to challenge conventions, reinvent yourself, take things that have been around forever and think, are there new ways to create that, to express them in a more interesting, current, cultural way? The Barbie movie was a great example for that. We took a brand that has been around for a long time and we played with it. We changed the perception of what this was meant, of what people expected that to be. And while some people thought there's a risk in doing that going against the classic traditional definition of what people would expect out of Barbie, it ended up being an important new way to represent the brand in today's culture. And so this is something that we believe is very important, to continue to innovate, create, challenge convention, be original, and at the same time, stay authentic and connect to the true DNA of the company and the brands that we own.
Great, thank you. Let's open up to any live questions now, if people have any questions. We have two microphones here.
Thank you for an amazing conversation. I guess as what's considered a geriatric millennial, I remember growing up with G.I. Joe and other brands. I think what's fascinating to me is, as a grown-up, I realized those brands found toys and built worlds around them, to make this thing that was larger than itself and made it the cultural icons that they are today. It seemed like when you were talking about that, it really kind of echoed that to me, in that you're taking these brands that are there that have existed long before your tenure there, and now are trying to build those into things that are bigger than themselves. I just wanted to see if if that came to mind, or just kind of what you see as those parallels. And I think as Gen Z and younger generations are looking for more experiential experiences, and less, just kind of more of these organic things that get people out into the world. It sounds also like that's what you're targeting also. Just would love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Right. Yeah. What defines today's economy, especially consumer-facing product experiences and entertainment, is that we live in a world of unlimited supply, endless shelf space, and very heavy competition for share of mind. There's so much out there, especially for young consumers. If you look at linear television, take Nickelodeon, between broadcast and cable, Nickelodeon in the last 10 years is down 95%. Traditional Nickelodeon. Now, it used to be, back in the day, you wanted to reach children, you put a spot on television and you know exactly the audience you're reaching and how many, and was very easy back in the day, especially in America. Today, it's actually really hard to find consumers. This is not just in children, by the way. This is for all consumer-facing companies, even for the likes of Nestle and Budweiser and P&G. One of the greatest challenges is reaching consumers today, and it will get even more bifurcated with time. So because of that, the importance of brands, known brands, is highest than ever. Big brands have a built-in advantage, with the high awareness, built-in fan base, and any project that is based on a brand, you already starting the journey at a much higher level with more chances of success. You know, and again, looking at the Barbie movie, if you took the same incredible director, the script, the cast, the budget, everything was exactly the same. But the movie was called Susie, after a doll named Susie. What do you think would have happened? Probably it couldn't even attract the talent to begin with. And likewise, most other big entertainment experiences, there's so much that is dependent on brands. It's not that you cannot create something wholly original, and people still try that, but it's much, much, much harder and more expensive and more risky. So brands today are more important than ever, because as you try to rise above competition and noise in the market. And this is exactly the opportunity we're seeing. You know, one example is a new business that we launched recently, is self-published mobile games. You know, there are many, many games out there. Today, to make a mobile game, is actually very affordable. At between $5 to $10 million, you can launch a mobile game. All marketing is performance marketing with real-time ROI, which makes the barriers to entry very low. And because of that, there are many games out there. So the only way you can compete and be noticed and recognized is if you do that with known brands that people recognize, people already have a relationship with. And this is a new business that we recently launched and see tremendous potential for Mattel, given the strength and appeal of our brands. So that is a key part of the strategy. And by the way, this is not an invention. You know, this is not an invention for Mattel. What we're doing is something that every company would like to do. Some companies did successfully before, except that we've never tried. And so the change is that we're now actually doing it and leveraging the strength of our brands to get into new businesses and capture more of the mind share out there, given the appeal and relationship that people, consumers, fans have with our IPs.
Thank you for being here today, and congratulations on all of your success. I can say firsthand, I've worked with the team at Mattel in my career, and they've been phenomenal to work with. So congratulations on the team and the culture you've built as well.
Thank you.
You talked about the success and innovation that comes out through all the challenges and scrutiny you faced. I'm curious to know if there's one particular failure you've had in your career that you've cherished the most, and how that's helped reshape your approach to leadership.
Thank you. You know, what I learned is sometimes you jump and hope there's water in the pool. And sometimes you jump and hope there's a pool. You forget there's water there. I've had made many mistakes along the way. I think the important thing is to quickly correct and move on, and not dwell on the mistakes. You know, you have to continue to drive and try to change things. And sometimes you take calculated risks, but you have to stay close to what you do to make sure that, you know, to assess and quickly course correct. You know, I would say what I learned along the way is you have to pick up small signals, you know, be aware of small signals. You know, mistakes or things that go wrong rarely happen in a big way that is too obvious and written on the wall. Sometimes it does, but more often it's about the small signals that you have to read and be aware of, and then quickly dive and extrapolate and then make a decision. So it's not about the mistakes, it's about quickly realizing what is not working and then quickly course correct, and make sure that people around you are not afraid to make mistakes, that people are expected to make mistakes. It's about correcting and learning and then implementing a different approach where needed.
I'm curious, as Mattel has become such a prominent post-MBA landing spot for, especially for Anderson students, what do you think it is about the company that is able to attract so many young leaders looking to accelerate their leadership trajectory, and even from across different industries coming to the company to move forward in their careers?
You know, going back to what I said earlier, it's all about the people. You know, we can talk about brands all day long. We can talk about movies and innovation and technology and AI, all the great things that we do. But ultimately, it's about the people. And creating a culture where people can thrive and bring different perspectives, different ideas, and be their true selves and add to the greater good of the company. And so, you know, I'm very focused on culture. The person I talk to the most, I have been speaking to the most since I've joined the company, is the head of people and culture. It's not the head of supply chain, it's not the head of technology, it's the head of people and culture, HR, in other words, and in the old days. And so this is something that I care deeply about. And you know, it's not always in big, grand plans. It's about the day-to-day, it's about the culture, being accessible, building a culture of trust, and inviting innovation and new ideas. So with that, we overinvest in young talent, in the internship program, in trying to find new recruits from different aspects, different parts of the industry. You know, as a company, you can say one of the things that we used to do is be very insular. We would swim in our own pond and hire people from other toy companies, you know, kind of were in the same place. And now it's very much about being receptive to new ideas and new innovation, especially in today's world where everything is so interrelated and interconnected. You can't be in one industry alone without having a very strong connective tissue with other parts of the world we live in. And technology can help bridge that. Think of the power of mobile phones, you know, that is so different today than 10 or 15 years ago in terms of engaging fans, being out there, being front of mind, and finding ways to engage with people. So different world, different economy, new people, new ideas is all about ultimately the people and how do you create a culture that fosters that.
I had a question going back a little bit about the transformation you were presenting to us in terms of going from an item-driven approach to a franchise. Can you walk us through how did that play out with the retailers who tend to be very traditional and definitely looking like an item by item and see how that performs? If you can walk us through how you were able to overcome that challenge and that change in mentality with them.
Yes, I would say retailers have actually also been pretty, you know, the successful one have been sophisticated enough to see exactly the value of what we do, what we bring to the table. You know, the interesting thing is that toys as a category is strategic to retailers because it drives foot traffic. It's, you know, people who buy toys spend more time in the store, end up having normally bigger baskets. And so, you know, in that regard, toys is strategic to retailers. What is interesting is to see is the relationship we have with retailers around the world. We sell products in 500,000 stores globally. You know, a Walmart store is one. And of course, we have many mom and pop shops in literally every part of the world where we sell products. So you have to have that large infrastructure and commercial relationship with stores all over the world. But what you offer them is much more than putting product on shelves, which, by the way, in itself is a huge undertaking, just doing that. But it's more than that. It's about engaging with the store owners and creating an experience for them that brings more people in. So it's actually pretty sophisticated. We develop our own proprietary technology, building the right planograms with heat maps that optimizes what product to put in what shelf at what height, and how many feet, and how you optimize all of that. So it's pretty scientific. But ultimately, it's about the experience that you create in the store. And we work very closely with the retailers to make sure that that partnership works for everybody. But the good news is that we've been doing it for decades, and we always continue to innovate in that area as well and make sure that that partnership is productive and mutually, actually not just for Mattel and the retailer, but also for the consumer and the fans, that everybody wins.
Given the strong value and importance you place in established brands, do you think there's still room for new startups to emerge in the toy industry similar to Suru that was able to compete with major players?
There's always room for innovation and newcomers, which is so great about the industry. It's a place where things happen. It used to be Squishmallow. Lego had the Botanicals. We had our fair share of hits as well, but it's a hit-driven industry. And there's always room for good ideas. And success can come from anywhere, so there's always room for good ideas.
So everything you said about expanding mindshare for Mattel across media is really interesting to me. And to that point, and I think you touched on it a little bit with publishing your own mobile games, do you see Mattel expanding beyond licensing and IP to actually own some of these production processes and vertically integrate and bring movie making or app building or game building in-house to become sort of a full stack entertainment company, the way that Disney is positioned today?
Yeah, it's an important question. How deep do you go? At this point, the model has been very much a partnership model because we have so many brands and we play across so many industries. So even in mobile games, if we wanted to own the development capabilities, it would be too costly and too resource consuming to invest in building and owning development capabilities. And by the way, we develop games across so many different genres that you couldn't possibly own all the capabilities. Take that and multiply that across film, television, parks, musicals, and others. So the model is very much a partnership model. We collaborate with the best people in the world in what they do. We play quarterback in that we are on the field. We don't pass the ball and step aside. We are on the field with the other players, except we pass the ball to the best player who is in the best position to run and score. And so for that, you need to find the right partner and attract the right players and make sure that you give them the right capabilities and tools, but the model has been very much a partnership model. In some cases, we're actually looking to co-invest or co-finance, where we want to amplify our return and where we see asymmetric opportunity for Mattel. But the currency typically that we use is our brands. And for the reasons I said earlier, the importance of big brands today, in a world where everybody is looking for big IP, this is our currency, and this is what we leverage to win.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the very last question, which is, what is the single most important piece of advice you'd like to leave our students with today?
I don't feel I'm in a position to give people advice, but to me, what always mattered, I always try to be clear with myself about my goals and what I'm trying to achieve. I believe that knowing what you want and be very specific and clear about it is half the journey. If you know what you want in career or studies or other things, you will figure out a way to get there. But it's really the definition, defining what are your goals, whether it's for you or for the company or employees that you talk to. Once you know what you're trying to achieve, it's half the distance. And from there, it's a lot easier to achieve that.
Thank you so much.